Hello, welcome back. My name is Jo, and we are going to talk about how the first quarter of 2025 has gone as far as language learning, really just Spanish learning so far. I rewatched my goals video, which I will have linked. I said, that I was planning to take the DELE, probably B2, probably in April. I did do that, so technically the exam was like 4 days into quarter 2, but we will ignore that. So in preparation for that, I wanted to do the B2 Langalia course and review some of the B1, specifically the past tenses. I did pretty much do this. I did not finish the B2 course by any means. I think I actually only did like less than 40% if you look at like the percent completed, because there are a lot of exercises as a part of this course, but I'll have on the screen like how much I completed. Most of the topics that I was concerned about, I completed a lot of it, but I still would like to use this more, and I'd like to do a lot of the C1 also. Interestingly, a lot of the grammar subjects in the C1 exam, or in the C1 course, are actually expected for the B2 exam. So I did open some of the C1 things and kind of dabble through, but not significantly. I was studying grammar. I also did a lot of lessons on Profe DL. I did a lot of Langolia articles. I did a lot of random Googling and then reading and taking notes on articles. I watched a lot of Ling Curiosas, I think is how you would say that. I'm not sure I've ever actually heard her say it. A lot of her videos, as well as a crap ton of practice exams. This is maybe my proudest accomplishment of the year, more so than actually taking the exam for sure. I still have like a couple pages, but this, hold on, maybe the first time I've ever finished a notebook for something that I was self-studying. Obviously, I went through notebooks in school or in university and stuff, but to fill a notebook, like pages and pages, obviously there are, blank spaces in here, but to just like, I'm pretty happy with that. Unfortunately, I did kind of decide that I actually would rather do like a binder, refillable notebook kind of thing. So I probably will copy over, well, I don't know. I was gonna say I will probably copy over my grammar notes and then get rid of this. But although I do want to copy over grammar notes into a more clean, organized area, I don't know that I will get rid of this because it has all my practice writing in it, and probably in like 10 years I'm going to want to look back on this basura. So there is that. Then another goal for the year, along with the tests but also separate from the tests, was that my ultimate goal this year, without question, is to be comfortable speaking and writing in Spanish. I'm already comfortable speaking and writing to the extent that I don't feel like anyone has to like make themselves uncomfortable in any way to function with me. Like, I speak Spanish at work all the time. I am out in the world, doing basic tasks. Obviously that doesn't always require Spanish, but a lot of the time it does. A lot of things where I specifically am are not like, you can't do them online, that sort of thing. So you generally do have to speak Spanish for like any kind of administrative tasks or anything like that. And I mean, I say I don't think, I know that people are not uncomfortable. Like I know that everybody's fine. So it's not that I need to get comfortable in that way, because I already am. But I mean, I want to be comfortable speaking and writing to the point where, I don't have to worry so much about grammar when I'm speaking or writing, to where I just feel more fluid, that sort of thing. And so far, yes, that has absolutely improved. It's still not anywhere near where I would like it to be, of course, but, looking at it objectively, aside from the, mental hurdles that I have been going through the past few months, objectively, yes, absolutely, that has improved. The other goal that I had for the whole year was reading más o menos 50 books in Spanish, but I specifically said it's not so much the 50, it's the fact that I normally read about 100 books a year and that I want about half of them to be in Spanish. And I've been reading a lot less than I ordinarily would have, I think largely because of the delay, but also because I have been in a bit of a slump. I'm not on track for the 50 books, but surprisingly, I am way over 50% books in Spanish. So technically at the start of April, I had read 14 books. It's going to show 15 on this graph because I didn't take the screenshot until right now. But I had read 14 books and 10 of those were in Spanish. So I'm at almost 70%, which I don't think that will continue because I can listen to a couple audiobooks in English over a couple days and completely wipe out that percentage. But regardless, I am glad that that is high. I feel like I've been mostly reading in Spanish, which is good. I am, again, not totally happy with the quantity or quality of books that I've been reading this year. And so that's not exactly what I would want going into, the second quarter of the year. But again, I had a lot going on, both in reality and emotionally. So it'll be fine. I'm not upset about it. It's just that I don't necessarily want the year to keep looking this way. So before we go into just kind of my general thoughts on the quarter, we can talk about the other languages, which there really haven't been. But my other languages potentially for this year are Portuguese and German. I do follow quite a few Brazilian content creators. And so sometimes I will watch a reel in Portuguese, stuff like that. Maybe a couple times this year I have watched a YouTube video of a booktuber from Brazil. And then German, I was playing mobile games for a minute in German. I have a video of one of those, and I do want to continue doing that. Obviously I kind of put that on hold a little bit for studying for the test, but yeah, I do want to continue doing that. German actually will be relevant for me in quarter 3, so I am wanting to pick that back up. So, other general thoughts on the quarter. If you watch my vlogs, you will know that I was in quite a slump in many different ways over the past couple months. I am not trying to assign too much importance to it because I think it's also just a part of moving to another country. Some people have this big honeymoon experience of everything just being absolutely incredible and being I am more in love with this language, with this culture, whatever, than ever. And although I love living here and I am so grateful for the experience and I, wouldn't trade it for anything, I haven't really had that experience. I think partially it comes from not being 20. I just turned 32, and so I think I have just I don't know, not that that's old by any stretch, but I do feel a lot of people who go through that phase are maybe a little bit younger. But anyway, regardless, that kind of change and everything is always going to have quite a bit of baggage associated with it. So yeah, that didn't help. And then I'm hypercritical of myself, and so moving also to a significantly more blunt and direct society, where people say things that in the US would be perceived as quite critical, but are maybe not here, and I completely understand and respect that. But it also doesn't help with, my overly critical self-view, I think, sometimes. So all that to say, aside from my issues with grammar and mechanics of languages. I think a lot more of this was just the emotional side than anything else. And that's something that I really have not talked about, I feel like, or even really thought about that much throughout my whole language learning journey, because it's never honestly been that relevant before. This was just a hobby. I did not have to really be that tuned in to the emotional side. Obviously, if I had things going on in my life outside of language learning or even in the world in general, that would always impact my language learning. But it didn't necessarily completely derail me in the way that it has the past couple months. Hopefully we are going to emerge on the other side of this. It was like having this realization of my identity has nothing to do with whether I'm good at Spanish or not. People at my school or whatever can think oh wow, she has terrible grammar. And that does not matter in my life, I don't know, this sounds really dumb vocalizing it, but how you just start to assign importance to things that they just have no business having. So I think that I was having this identity crisis of I think with having learned Spanish for so long with essentially no goal other than wanting to be able to understand Spanish, made me feel foolish now. Because if I tell people here, oh, I've been learning Spanish for 5 years, but I didn't really start speaking until a couple years ago, the past 2 years, really. I think that they're oh my god, you've been learning for 5 years. It's yeah, well, if I had known I was going to move to Spain in 5 years, I probably would have gone about learning it rather differently. I had no goal when I started, and I didn't even have a goal until very recently. I did not realistically think I was moving to Spain until the past less than 2 years. I think also it's kind of not wanting people to think that I'm a dumbass in more ways than one. In having bad grammar, I don't want to be perceived as an uneducated person, and that has biases along with it for sure, because having bad grammar does not mean that you're stupid by any stretch, all these things. And I don't think about people that way in English. If I have people that I am interacting with who have far from perfect English, I have zero thoughts about that. So I'm assigning this importance to something that I would consider someone bigoted if they assigned that importance to it in my own native language. And I know there are differences, English has a very different socio-political world global presence, so there is that. But regardless, I have departed from my notes so far here. So anyway, all that to say, I haven't necessarily been enjoying things in the same way that I normally would have. That sounds describing being depressed, but I think only in relation to Spanish. I have been way less depressed since I moved to Spain in general, but I think partially it is that I used to watch things just because they were in Spanish. Not that I didn't enjoy them, but that I wouldn't necessarily have invested all the time in them if it were the same quality but in English. And now Spanish seems incredibly normal and also omnipresent. I don't think I ever need to be as picky in Spanish as I was in English, or as I am in English. I'm always somewhat picky, but I think, I can afford now to be a little bit more picky, at least for a while, and maybe I'll get out of this slump and none of this will be relevant anymore, so we'll see. So just touching back on the grammar, since that has been a big theme for quite some time now. Although my grammar still needs a lot of work, I definitely do notice a huge improvement. Being super critical of myself, I still am hyper focusing on when I do something wrong. Like I texted a teacher the other day and used the third person future instead of the first person future when I was talking about myself. And like I just sent it like without a thought in the world, and then I looked at it and I was like, man, that is not. So anyway, definitely do still make basic errors at times, but I definitely noticed like more complex structures will just like come to mind in a way that absolutely did not happen before. And I do make less errors with other more basic forms, even though I still do make the errors. And I think part of that is due to talking to myself a lot more proactively. I have gotten into a bit of a habit now. I still want to do it more, but giving monologues to myself lots of times, kind of, winning arguments that either never happened or didn't really happen in the way that I'm imagining them, or just, talking about stuff. Again, I want to do this more, not necessarily in the winning arguments way, more so in like describing things that are happening or talking about different kinds of topics. Like the other day in a PE class, this kid got hit in the back of the head with a badminton birdie. So obviously not like serious, but I was like, how would I say that? I could obviously express that. Like I would have no problems explaining it. But what the natural phrase for a native Spanish speaker would be for the back of the head, I was just like, how would you say that? So I was thinking about all the different like prepositions and position verbs, I don't know, like all the different things that you use to describe physical things that are happening, that I hardly ever have to use those. And so I was like, I really need to start like trying to just just look around me and like try to describe what is happening. Like I think that would be good. Q2, what am I thinking? I am obviously in a bit of a respite period after the delay, and I'm still really trying to kind of take the pressure off of my Spanish level of achieving anything, especially since I still don't know and won't know for quite some time how I did on the delay. Like there's a very non-zero chance that I failed, and in that case I need to like be prepared to deal with that and not be like again crushed all over again. I don't want to say I don't think that I would be, but like I think I'm more prepared to deal with that now than I would have been a couple months ago. But regardless, obviously that would be very disappointing, and if that happens, you will see a video about it, because unfortunately, I have signed up for sharing about this on the internet for some unknown reason. But regardless, anyway, as I said, kind of up my input again. Second battery dying in this video. So anyway, I want to kind of slowly reintroduce grammar study, which I haven't really been doing since like a couple weeks before the exam. I wasn't really cramming, but I was definitely overwhelmed by the grammar study, and so I just want to, be doing that in a more gradual, natural way. And I also want to pick up writing again. I do think that the writing helped tremendously with my grammar, reinforcing what I was learning, trying to use those structures more, and also just like helping me think on my feet a little bit better in Spanish. Also would like to make more videos in Spanish. Speaking of thinking on my feet in Spanish, all the test prep and everything, I think the best thing that it did was it kind of broke my weirdness around speaking Spanish on camera or recorded in general. And so I can make videos in Spanish for practice. Obviously, the ideal thing to do for practice would be to make all of my videos in Spanish, but obviously I still want to keep my non-Spanish speaking audience. And it's also a lot more work, not just in the actual filming and everything, but I need to do subtitles twice, all that kind of stuff. So anyway, I'm not gonna make all my videos in Spanish, but I could add in more videos in Spanish. So, that's that. I don't know, this is a weird phase to be in where I am both like completely functional in a Spanish speaking country with no real problems navigating anything, And also, like, I'm just a baby. Having been a monolingual for my entire life, like, I could never have, like, understood how that was possible without experiencing it. Anyway, that was like a very long yap sesh / therapy session, you know, hopefully interesting to somebody. Here's to a happier, healthier Q2. Peace out. I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.